tension today, Malaysia's appetite for oil and gas puts it on collision course with China. As reserves closer to shore run dry, Malaysia is venturing farther into disputed waters of the South China Sea claimed and patrolled by China. In the open sea off the coast of Malaysian Borneo, industrial rigs extract massive amounts of oil and gas that fuel the economy of Malaysia. Slightly beyond that, in waters Malaysia also considers its own, Chinese Coast Guard vessels and maritime militia boats maintain a near-constant presence, say Malaysian officials. For 10 years, their country has done little to contest them, but Malaysia is running out of oil and gas close to shore. Increasingly, it has to venture farther out to sea, raising the likelihood of direct confrontation with Chinese forces in the South China Sea. As tensions rise throughout the South China Sea, one of the world's busiest and most contested bodies of water, energy demands are drawing Malaysia deeper into the fray and testing the country's long-standing reluctance to antagonize China. According to interviews with more than 24 government officials, diplomats, oil and gas executives, and analysts in Malaysia, some of Asia's biggest oil and gas reserves lie under the seabed of these disputed waters. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, since 2021, Malaysia's state-owned energy company, Petronas, has awarded several dozen new permits for companies like Shell and TotalEnergies to explore new deposits here, many in so-called deepwater clusters more than 100 nautical miles from shore but still within the boundaries of what Malaysia considers its exclusive economic zone, EEZ. These developments are teeing up more confrontations with China, warn energy and security analysts. Already, federal and provincial officials in Malaysia have been beefing up military deployments around the industrial port town of Bintulu in the state of Sarawak, where much of the country's oil and gas industry is based, and Malaysia has been increasing military cooperation with the United States, particularly on maritime security. For the first time later this year, a bilateral army exercise that Malaysia conducts annually with the United States will be held on Borneo, said a U.S. State Department official. At least since 2020, China has been harassing Malaysian drilling rigs and survey vessels, leading to standoffs that have lasted months, according to satellite imagery and data that track ship movements. For years, Malaysia's response has been muted, a calculation shaped by reliance on Chinese investment and the relative weakness of the Malaysian military, said Malaysian security analysts and defense officials. Unlike the Philippines or Vietnam, Malaysia rarely publicizes Chinese intrusions into its EEZ, which extends 200 nautical miles off the coast, and withholds how often these incidents occur from journalists and academics. In an exclusive interview, the Director General of Malaysia's National Security Council dismissed concerns of Chinese harassment, even as he acknowledged that Chinese vessels had been patrolling Malaysian waters nearly non-stop. "Obviously, we prefer for Chinese assets not to be in our waters," said Nusyirwan bin Zainul Abidin, who was ambassador to China from 2019 to 2023. "But there's no need," he added, "for the dispute to color Malaysia's broader relationship with its largest trading partner. We can let sleeping dogs lie," Nusyirwan said. Despite objections from countries in Southeast Asia, China has laid claim to almost the entire South China Sea, building artificial islands and deploying vessels to enforce what it calls the 10-line. delimiting on maps the boundaries of what China says are its waters, which come within 30 nautical miles of the Malaysian coast. While much attention in recent months has been paid to China's intensifying encounters in contested waters with Filipino fishermen and Coast Guard, tensions stirring farther south, where the world's biggest oil and gas companies have deeper interests, have gained far less notice. Asked about Malaysia's claims of Chinese incursions, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said in a statement that Chinese vessels have been conducting normal navigation and patrol activities in areas under its jurisdiction. Malaysia has for decades sought to decouple the South China Sea dispute from trade and investment with China, said a high-ranking Malaysian official, who spoke on the condition of anonymity because he had not been authorized to address the issue. But the country's need for offshore oil and gas is starting to upset this delicate balancing act, the official said. He noted that Chinese Coast Guard vessels have repeatedly disrupted operations at the Kasawari gas field, which contains an estimated 3 trillion cubic feet of gas, and where Malaysia has recently built its biggest offshore platform. For what's happening at Kasawari, I don't have a solution, the official said. Right now, no one does. In the 1970s, before Shell discovered large deposits of oil and gas off the coast, Bintulu was a small fishing village with a single stretch of road connecting a mosque to a market. Today, it's a throbbing hub of industry, anchored by a 682-acre processing facility that produces 30 million tons of liquefied natural gas per year. In 2023, Malaysia was the world's 5th largest exporter of LNG, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Malaysia has relied on these resources to drive growth for decades, deriving 20% of its gross domestic product from oil and gas. But several years ago, industry analysts warned that the country's era of easy exploration was ending. Oil and gas found in shallow waters, meaning at depths less than 1,000 feet, were running out. Companies knew there were more deposits remaining, said San Nang, a senior oil and gas analyst at BMI, a market research firm. They just had to go farther out.